When I first began to think about filmmaking and advancing my career beyond film, sound, post-production, I was studying all different aspects of the filmmaking craft because I had made a similar move from being a recording engineer into being a record producer. And so when I was mixing movies, I thought I could make a similar transition into being a filmmaker rather than a re-recording mixer or a dubbing mixer. And so I was studying all aspects of the craft, the movies for television, television writing, documentaries, feature films, and I approached the filmmaking craft as a storytelling motif. I think that storytelling is integral to using the medium. I think you have to look at what you're putting on the screen in terms of how the components are molding together into a story. And story is a very enigmatic thing. It's no one particular quality. Story is not just the progression of one idea to another. It isn't just the movement of a character through a space. It isn't just conflict. You know, story is many different things, and it can occur in many different manners. It isn't necessarily only a three-act structure. It isn't necessarily only conflict yielding an outcome. There are many elements that make a story a story. And it is character, it's the evolution of circumstances, it's really, I think what story is, it's the audience's experience is really where story becomes story. It's what happens with an audience is really where a story becomes alive. It's not so much what you do literally on the screen, it's how it impacts the person that's watching it. And what I mean by that is when a person becomes so involved in what they're seeing and so much lose themselves in it so much that they forget where they are and they forget that there's an audience around them. They forget, you know, where they park their car. They're so entrenched in what's going on, and the lights come on and they're like, they feel like they've been taken to a different world. That's what story is about. That's what really is compelling about the filmmaking craft. And that's something that is a constant search. It's a constant, I'm constantly looking for how to create that kind of experience for the audience as I'm making the film. And it comes from many different things. It can come from what you're looking at, it can come from what you're hearing, it can come from the arrangement of ideas, from the personality of who's presenting whatever it is you're doing. So I think story is a fundamental to documentary filmmaking and to the filmmaking craft as a whole. I work in a manner that is very much akin to traditional documentary filmmaking. Documentary films came about after the Second World War, primarily, when equipment had been manufactured for use in the war that was very lightweight. So when the Second World War was over, there were all these lightweight 16mm cameras around, and people picked them up and started doing handheld documentaries, things that they could shoot without having a big crew and a big Hollywood set and lots of lights. And that's really where the contemporary documentary genre was invented. And in those days, things were shot on 16mm film, and they were cut on very simple editing devices, and it was a fairly straightforward process. So there is somewhat of a tradition of the documentary filmmaker being a sort of one-stop shop, someone who shoots and edits and composes the picture themselves. Part of it is economics, part of it is just having a multiplicity of creative options and creative control. And that's the other thing about doing all of the jobs, is that it gives you a complete authority over the filmmaking process. You have the opportunity to inject your own perspective and your own creative nuance into every aspect of the filmmaking process. So it has its drawbacks. It's very time consuming. It is challenging in terms of the amount of responsibility. It's challenging in terms of the amount of technical expertise that's required, but it's also very satisfying from a craft level. I enjoy the process of making films as much as I appreciate what the films have to say and the impact that they have on the public. As I continue on down this path of being an auteur and a sort of do-it-all filmmaker. I'm finding that as time goes by, I do want to build teams. I want to build stronger relationships with a larger sphere of people. I've recently been working with a cinematographer, which is for me a first, and I'm enjoying that a lot because it gives me more space to focus in on the subjects. I feel that my most important allies are a composer and cinematographer. And I don't know if I'll ever give up the editing chair because it's so much a part of the craft of making the film to me. It's so much an integral part of what a filmmaker does, is that what a documentary filmmaker does is that process of molding the film into a cohesive unit through the interaction with the material directly. So, but I do feel that as time goes by, I would like to work with more and more sophisticated teams of creative people, because I think that teamwork really does, in fact, over time, realize better results.